My name is Dustin Kelly, but everybody calls me DJ. I'm prior Army, serving as both a Ford observer and a military police officer. I've spent the last 14 and a half years as a police officer and detective in a large metropolitan police department. Two things that I've learned throughout my career. One, everybody has a story to tell. And two, the best stories are true. This is the DTD Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the DTD Podcast. This week in the studio, Matt Klein from Battle Tribe. After graduation, Matt joined the U.S. Army and served the 3rd Infantry Division as a machine gunner and squad marksman. He conducted 400-plus combat missions during 2 tours in Iraq. He received the Combat Infantryman's Badge and the Purple Heart for shrapnel wounds resulting from a large IED blast. After he was discharged, he joined the NYPD, made his way up from patrol in the precincts over to the exalted forensic sketch artist. In the studio tonight, Matt Klein. Welcome, man.
Oh, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a little much to get all that out, but our stuff's a little different. We have divisions here, you have bureaus, you have all those different kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I want to get into this, man, because you have had like a crazy life after high school. Like you went right into the Army, you did a whole bunch of stuff, you got out there, joined the NYPD. I mean, that's not a small feat to do those things. And I want to talk to you about all the things that you do, because what we see, and you see it in military, you see it in first responders and law enforcement, you see a lot of people that step away from these jobs and don't have anything else in life. They haven't made hobbies, and it results in bad things for them when all this is said and done. You have started your own company, and it has really taken off. So I want to talk to you not only about your service, but what we can do to take steps after the service to kind of figure out what we want to do in life. So let's start out early. Did you have a military background in your family?
Well, my dad didn't serve, but when I grew up, my grandfather was a World War II dive bomber pilot, and he served during World War II. And I grew up with his stories, and he was in the Navy and flew in the Pacific. He was a McDouglas Dauntless dive bomber pilot. And so he was on the U.S. Ticonderoga. So he had a lot of the island hopping stories, and he was telling me about all the different missions and stuff. And he fought in Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, all the way up to what was the big one? I forget. Okinawa. He said that was like the end of the world. And then he had a brother who was a B-17 bomber navigator, and he was killed. He was shot down over Germany during one of the later raids. Like I forget, they had to do like 40 raids, and at the end of that, he ended up passing away. But so I grew up with all those stories, and I remember the main thing was Pearl Harbor happened, and that was like his call to arms. Like he really wasn't doing too much. He signed up like everybody else, and they got into the fight. So hearing all the stories growing up, 9/11 happens, and it was the same kind of thing. I really wasn't doing anything, and I just felt the urge to get out there and fight and get involved and serve the country.
Did you ever have that idea when you were younger, like in high school? I mean, I know you heard his stories and stuff, but was that ever, I've talked to a lot of guys that are like, man, from 8 years old, I knew that I wanted to do this. Then you talk to some other guys that are like, I had no idea I wanted to do this. Did you even have this in your radar?
It was always on the table, but I really, like, when I was growing up and I got out of high school, I really didn't have too much direction. I wish I would have had somebody that would. My biggest regret is I should have joined 18 straight out and stopped. Didn't waste any time, got right involved. But I really didn't. I just kind of floundered around, didn't have any direction. Went to community college for like a little bit, wasn't doing great, and then that happened and kicked off, and everything kind of fell into place.
Yeah, that's the way it was for me. I joined a lot sooner than you did. I was getting out right around 2001. But I went to community college, and I was like, man, this isn't really for me. I don't know if I'm mature enough for it yet. I don't know, whatever. And I get out and I join the military, and I learned a lot of stuff in the military, just, kind of taking care of yourself, having a direction, having a purpose and things like that. And so when I got back out and finished my degree, it helped a lot. And I can say it's even helped being in law enforcement. It's really helped me out from stuff that I learned there. You would agree with all that for your career. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Now, when a lot of people join, though, they don't necessarily want to be infantry or anything like that. Um, what gave you the idea? Was it just because that would get you into the fight?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to get into the fight. You know, I wanted to see combat, how insane that sounds. And I remember them saying, like, you're going to go to 3rd Infantry Division, you're guaranteed. He's like, you're going to go there. And, you always hear, like, recruiters lie story. And they weren't lying. I was, I was right there. You know, like I remember they brought me in to see a major, and he was like, you want to go to combat, kid? He's like, I swear to God, you're gonna see it, 3rd ID. And I'm like, all right, because I never heard of them. I only heard of like 82nd, 101st, like the big, big glamorous units and stuff. But broken TV went in there.
Well, let me ask you, because you were in kind of a different place. You were in New York around the time of 9/11. Was it different for you than a lot of people?
I mean, everybody has so many stories, especially New Yorkers, and people that were there and around it and stuff. And, my story was I was going to work and I heard it on the radio, and, I heard plane. I thought it was like a little Cessna or something. And then to see it on TV and then finally get to a TV, we all went home from work early and just seeing that fireball, it was like out of a Die Hard movie, wasn't it? I don't even believe it today, like seeing it. It's just so insane. And then, that was it. It's just a really horrible day. We just had the 20th anniversary. I watched, I think, like a 10-minute video, and I was ruined for the day. Just set me in a bad place. But never forget that day.
And that's why I bring that up, because it's got to be different for you guys that were there. It's an attack and an affront to all of the United States, for people that were in the military, for law enforcement, all that kind of stuff. But to actually be there, it has to resonate different with you guys. I mean, you have to carry that when you're overseas and you're fighting for your country. It has to ring differently in you.
Yeah, just the close proximity of it, and then that I always saw it, and then coming back, and then when you finally see it and it's completely gone, it just yeah, I agree with that.
Do you remember back when all this happened? Do you remember being anywhere, after this is all over, the cleanup projects start, the recovery start? Did you ever go anywhere near down there? Do you remember what it looked like in Manhattan after that? Because that's lower Manhattan, correct? Where everything is. So do you remember it looking any different? Because, I mean, if you go there now, I mean, it's unbelievable what it looks like now. Did you get anywhere near it after that happened?
So you mean the big thing right away is you notice the skyline, that empty skyline, because it was gone, and it took a long time for them to finally put up the Freedom Towers. And I got kind of close to it and saw like a little bit of the cleanup and rubble, but I really stayed away from it. And then like years later, being in the police department, one of my friends that was in my platoon, he ended up being in the sniper section. He called me up and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in the city. You want to go out for a drink and everything?" So I took him to the memorial, I think it's called the Ponce Reflection. It's like the big, and I remember going there, and just an eerie feeling. I've been there many times since, but just that was like the first time in years and years since I'd been there, and it's just an unsettling feeling. And I actually went right before the pandemic. I went to an event that was at the museum there. It was the first time I've ever been there. Have you been to the World Trade Center Museum?
I have.
Oh,
I haven't been inside the museum. I've been there twice, but the line to get in is forever. To get in, I've tried to figure out a couple ways. Now, I've been in all the buildings surround, where you can go. And I want to bring that up because it was always weird to me when I went back there the last time. We took all 3 of our daughters to New York for Christmas time, and we went down there, and there was like a new shopping mall in the area of the World Trade Center,
I think it's
Freedom One Plaza, and it was so crazy to see on this hallowed site, like selling Casper mattresses and makeup and things like that, and it almost kind of, I don't want to say it cheapened the area, but it felt strange to me to be somewhere like that.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
Yeah.
The museum with the line though, it is pretty wild. There was a private event that I ended up getting invited to, and I went and I was able to go in there. But like that, it's definitely an experience. going inside that museum. There's a lot of stuff in there, that brings you back. It's a hard place.
Yeah. The pools of reflection, that is awesome. Just how they built, I mean, they really took care in building that. And so family in general, what did you notice did you notice a difference in New Yorkers? Because you really did, like in the military and just people in general, there was that spark of patriotism. Everyone kind of got along. Did you notice a difference in New York?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody was a lot more friendlier, to, the police department, the fire department, and everything like that. But there was definitely a united front, to see who was responsible for this and to get on to it, and take the fight.
Now, originally, where are you at in this time frame? Like, where are you living in that area?
Oh, I actually lived a little far out I lived on Long Island, out in Suffolk County, which is like, I'm trying to think, like maybe an hour and a half away.
Okay.
So I was a good distance away. It wasn't like I was point blank right there.
Right. So with going into the military, you tell your family now, they were a little concerned. They backed you up on it, but they were a little concerned that you wanted to do this. So how did that conversation go with them?
I mean, they were concerned, and it was a little upsetting to them and stuff, but they backed me 100%, and I felt that calling, and that was it. They weren't going to hold it back, and I just went through with it.
So you go in, you go to basic, everything goes through. Now you were OSUT, right?
Yes.
So you did, yeah. So you did everything there. You go over to the third ID. When you get ready to deploy, your unit was already in Iraq, correct?
Yeah. So I got to 1st Brigade, and they already deployed. They went to Kuwait in, I think, January. So what happened, the invasion kicked off March 19th. They went over the berm. 3rd ID took Baghdad, I think, April 4th. So I didn't get there until later in the month. I actually went as a replacement group for people that had to leave emergency and people that were killed. So they were I went with maybe my battalion. I was in 2-7 Infantry. We had about, I think, 30, 40 guys. And then as soon as we got to Kuwait, we flew up to Baghdad airport that was recently captured. My company actually captured it. They put we all got picked up, and we went into lower Baghdad, and they split us all up, and we each got assigned to different platoons and different companies, and then covered down and fulfilled all the different missions we had to do until we left.
Coming there as a replacement, and people already being there now, they had already taken an airport and things like that. Are you treated different? Is it strange kind of stepping into that world?
So we get on C-130. We fly there. This is a good story. So they tell us from I think it was, we were at Doha. We drove to some airport in the middle of Kuwait, and we took a C-130, and they told us about 2 hours we're going to land there. And so I fall asleep. Within an hour, we're in the cargo nets. I forget what National Guard was flying us, but the C-130 starts to lose altitude. So I kind of wake up, and I'm like, oh, we landed. And I look, and the Air Force, it's so loud back there, I can't everything, and half the guys are sleeping. You see the Air Force guys taking Kevlar padding with Velcro, and they're Velcroing it, putting it up around the door, and they're standing behind the door, and the plane starts losing altitude, going up and down. So I look at the Air Force crew chief near the pallet of equipment. I'm like, yo, are we landing? And he's like, no, we're taking fire from the ground. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then the plane starts weaving about. Half the guys are asleep. And, we end up, the plane gains altitude. So, what were they taking fire from? Was it small arms fire? Was it crew served? Who knows? So we end up we get to Baghdad, we do the corkscrew, land. And as we're getting ready to land, they're like, when we're going to land the plane, we've been taking sniper and mortar fire. You're going to just get in a single file and just get off the tarmac as fast as possible. And, the plane landed and we got off and stuff like that. So I never found out what type was shooting at us, but, that plane was, I'm like, it was pretty intense. I'm like, what? I'm not even going to make it. So they pick us up, and just to give, answer your question, my platoon was aces. So a lot of these guys had guys that were killed, so you see the movies, right? like who's the new guy? I don't want to learn your name. You're gonna die and stuff.
Right.
My platoon was awesome. They're very nice. Of course, I got stuck with the shitty jobs right away. I'm the new, the FNG. It is what
Absolutely.
it is. But it was good. But I was with some hardcore guys, man. They fought their way up. They were there was a big battle at the Kabbalah Gap where they took on a bunch of Republican guards, and then they seized the airport, and they Bravo Company and 27 Infantry, the first Javelin anti-tank kill. They blew up a T-72. They were taking a lot. They had a Medal of Honor winner. Sergeant First Class Smith was attached to my battalion at the airport. So I was stepping into some big shoes. So, I kept my mouth shut and was just did what I was told, and it was, squared away as possible. And they were nice to me. I heard some other stories, the guys weren't well received, different ways and stuff, but it is what it is.
But that's not always necessarily on the receiving unit. That might be on the guys getting there. It might be attitude,
100%.
behavior. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. Yeah. Now I gotta ask though, as you see this guy strapping up the Kevlar and you ask him, "Hey, are we landing or what?" No, we're taking fire. This is your introduction into combat. I mean, technically it is. You're on your way there. I gotta know what was going through your mind. Like, holy shit, I'm not even on the ground yet.
I laughed it off because it was insane. And you're powerless. There's nothing you can do, you know? And it's funny though, because we had a captain that was in charge of the chalk. So we had two C-130s that were flying. And when we landed, the captain's like, "Hey, what the hell's wrong with you guys? I heard you guys were getting shot up." So I actually Google searched it, and I was trying to find there's a whole list of occasions when planes were shot at, C-130s and stuff, but I couldn't find, the date when it happened and stuff. But pretty wild story, man.
Yeah, I mean that's quite the introduction. I mean, you're drinking from a fire hose right then. So you get on the ground, you move into your unit. Is it what you seen? Because I've talked to a couple of guys that joined just like you did with 9/11 and everything, and they think it's going to be one way. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to Tony Brooks, and he went straight Ranger, and he was on the Lone Survivor. His very first mission was going to find Marcus Luttrell.
Wow.
But he talks about that. He expected it to be one way, and it was completely another direction. Did you feel the same way, or did it kind of go the way you wanted it, or at least thought it was going to?
So my first deployment didn't see that much action. Pretty much this is my opinion, everything. The Iraqi forces were just devastated and had no clue what the hell was going on. We're terrified of us. Dirt ID rolled in there, and the Thunder Run that went down and stuff destroyed everything. There was abandoned tanks, BMPs, so many of the forces who just threw their hands up and just faded away. So there was a couple skirmishes we got involved in and stuff, but it was very, very low. We had Humvees, no armor on the Humvees, sandbags, no doors, driving around deuce and a halves in Baghdad. Very different. We went back in September, the insurgency started to figure out how to kill us and attack us. And 1st Infantry Division is the one that took a big brunt of the initial, IEDs and people getting killed. We had, I think a guy in headquarters had his legs blown off by a mine, but it just started. So when I was there, the Iraqis were terrified, nobody was messing around. And also too, the guys I was with were a bunch of, stone cold killers. So it was pretty brutal. But my second tour, that's when all the stories and the shit hit the fan and everything like that. That was the real blood and guts deployment. So, but it was good times.
So do you see kind of a teamwork building on that first one? There's not a lot of action, like you said, but do you see that you're getting closer with the team, and I'm sure that pays off on the second deployment?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of the number. I would say maybe about 30% of the guys in that platoon left after the first deployment. So I had a lot of the leadership and a lot of the NCOs and everything from the first deployment, and it played a really big part in the second deployment because my platoon was really, it sounds a little, they were very squared away. I had an awesome lieutenant. My platoon sergeant was the man. Everybody, my NCOs, I had a lot of Rangers and stuff. They, very, well-to-do guys, and like first guys I would pick to go to war with. Very lucky, very fortunate.
Well, not only that, you talk about the leadership being good, but yours is the only one that didn't suffer any
Yeah,
casualties and no major injury, right?
yeah. I mean, that's that's a case of luck, but there was a lot of things that were like, we're not going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. Like just playing it, not necessarily running in, blind, kicking doors and stuff like that. Everything was very methodical, and like we were very violent, man. Just the violent of action, laying rounds down. Like the guys I was with were very well to do. Like when shit hit the fan and many skirmishes, like very overwhelming firepower, and like platoon sergeant and lieutenant made great calls, and it really paid off.
I want to compare these later on when we talk about going to the NYPD, when you talk about that violence of action and stuff, because you're taught a very, I mean, this is your introduction into kind of adulthood, and you're taught before the NYPD ever this violence of action, and it's such a difference when you go into police work. There
Yeah.
of course is violence, and there is, on a search warrant and things like that, there's violence all around you, but you have to approach it differently. So as we get into the police force, I want to kind of go back and forth with that. I had asked you for a couple pictures, and this is one of them. Can you tell me what's going on in this picture?
So, okay, yeah, this is a good picture. I like this picture. I got a cigarette in my mouth. We were doing a bunch of missions with the Iraqi army, the IA, as what they called them at the time. So we would go to their outposts, we'd pick them up. My platoon, I was in a mechanized platoon, so we had 4 Bradleys, and then we'd had 2 squads with a weapons team, between them. So we would pick these guys up, and they would drive in like F-150s with like no armor, with like RPK machine guns on the back. Yeah, it's like, and we'd take them out on patrol and like try to show them, So we did that a couple times, and then we had like a big firefight where they killed one of their own guys by accident, and that was pretty much the kibosh. But like these guys in the picture, like they're young, man, maybe like 20 years old, 19. Like you always wonder like, where are they now? Did they make it out of there? What happened? So the guy with the saw, that was my battle buddy. So my buddy James Garrett, he was a good dude. A lot of stories.
Well, in talking about that, when you work with the Iraqi army and everything, did you ever have trouble? Because people have talked about it. Some got along great with their Terps and all that kind of stuff. Did you guys ever have trouble with kind of getting them to understand, like, hey, this is your country, you got to fight for it, or did you, where they're backing out of things, or did you guys have really no trouble kind of being cohesive with them?
I mean, we showed them what to do, and then we'd lead them. We'd lead from behind. Lead them from in the front at first, and then they take the charge and stuff. And we did a couple, missions with them. But that one mission I was telling you about was a complete shit show. And then like my lieutenant went to my CO. I was like, "Yo, that's it. We're done." So I actually remember like the missions we did. We started in like the safer side of the city. And like the closer you got into the inner sanctum is like where it got more dangerous. So like the next day we're like waiting for it, make contact next day. And then like we went to like the shitty part, and then we made contact, and we had a whole firefight. And then they ended up killing one of their guys by accident, and complete mess. And we were just like, that could have been one of us. It was just,
Absolutely.
They were shooting in, the guy ran past me and started indiscriminately shooting down the street, and then shot at one of their own guys standing outside a gun truck. What ended up being the cousin of their lieutenant, and just a mess. And this is all, triaging this guy while the whole gun battle's going on, and so that was it. That was the end of that year working with them.
Well, so what happens to those guys once you guys cut them loose? Do you know what happens to them, or do they just kind of start doing their own thing, or what happens?
So, I mean, I'll give you like a synopsis of like my second deployment. So my second deployment was in Samara in 2005. We got there in early January or late December. So the mini story with that was during the invasion, they drove past it, and it was a hotbed for insurgents. So I believe first Infantry Division, Big Red One, they went in there around Easter Sunday, got into a huge gun battle, killed like 150 people. So they backed out, and they would occasionally do missions into the city. But every time they went in there, the insurgents had time to set up IEDs, booby traps, ambushes like that. So eventually, first Infantry Division's like, this isn't working. we're gonna put a thumb in their eye. We're gonna go attack them again, do a midi Fallujah, press in there, and then we'll set up a patrol base in the middle, a strong point in the middle of the city, so we can have eyes on the city all the time, and then we'll do our operations out there. The closest fob was Brassfield Mora, and that was about 45 minutes away. So they did Operation Baton Rouge. I think it was with the Louisiana National Guard and Pennsylvania National Guard. So they went in there, they killed like another 120 people. A couple of people got injured and killed, and a guy, I think from the Pennsylvania National Guard, his name was Sergeant Uvani, I believe. So that's what they named it after. So they seized it. So that was in, I think, October. So we take it over. They were attacked all the time. So we literally show up there, and we're going to do ride, see, ride with them. And day one, they mortared the shit out of the place. I go into the building, I'm looking around, I go out back to my track, my Bradley to get some equipment, and it took off and went to go get fuel. So as I'm walking back, I see a mortar hit like 70 feet away from me, hit an Iraqi soldier, and I was like this, and a bunch of soldiers dive on top of him, grab and start dragging him, and it was a giant plume of smoke. It must have been like a 60. I'm like, so I turn like this, I see them, and I just did like a slow jog, like fuck. Yeah, we go into the medic. Like, so I don't know where I'm going. I go to the side door, and it's the aid station, and you see like the Iraqi on his back. He lost some fingers, and the American had shrapnel in his ass. He's screaming. I look at my sergeant. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a good year, right? So, but we were constantly attacked. So then they were telling us stories like, don't go here. You're gonna make contact here, this and that, and then slowly it all came to a reality. And then, they said goodbye, have fun, and they all went back to Germany, and we sat there and fought for a year. And the main plan, we did missions where we tried to, bring supplies and support to the hospital and reach out to elders. The police, the local police precinct, they all quit. They got overrun, and like 30 of them got killed. And it was just chaos and anarchy. So all we were doing is going out there, trying to kill insurgents, and then halfway through the deployment, we came up with a system where we do the hunter-killer teams. We have OPs hidden everywhere, and that really depleted the insurgents. But that constant state of war really doesn't help, the community and the city, So, but that's the card we were dealt with, and we did the best we could, and pushed through.
Well, so there's a couple things with you telling that story that I want to ask you about that bring up. So when you talk about right seat ride, for people that are listening, I think you're talking about right seat, left seat. They're going to take you out, show you around, then you're going to occasionally switch over to the left, and then finally you'll take over the left seat. So you go out and you do that. Now, a couple questions that I want to kind of tie back into law enforcement. So you see these law enforcement or the police in these small areas or these villages or whatever, or just the Iraqi police force and stuff. Now that you're a police officer, of course there's not the, I guess the structure and stuff, but what's the differences you notice? Why do these police forces never last over there? Is it because of constant terrorist attacks? Is it because there's no structure? Is it because of corruption? But we see them fall over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's a lot. I guess a lot of corruption, and also like you look at the fall of Afghanistan that just happened. Like they pretty much rolled up like, hey, we know who you guys are. Join us or die. And it's just like, that's the decision you make. You're going to die on this hill for your country. You're just going to take the easy out. It's like it's a hard it's a hard decision. That they're faced with.
It's probably a very different kind of policing too. I don't think they're running radio calls and stuff. But what I've noticed whenever people talk about that, like when they go to train the police forces, or there's just kind of no structure there. No one's really. I mean, there's people in charge, but the people in charge don't know shit difference than the people that aren't in charge. I mean, there's just. And so I see that. So I try and ask law enforcement that I have on the show and stuff, what's the kind of differences you see? How did you see it change while you were there? Did you see any progression in it? Like where it got better?
They came back, I'd say about halfway through the year. Like we actually helped build a precinct for them. Like, so at night we drove in and we fortified, had we pulled 360 security while another platoon filled sandbags, and we built it, and then we got them to come back. And but it's hard. You're right. The structure, a lot of leadership is people that have money and family members and ties and stuff. So like the amount of respect, it's for leadership, and it's hard. It's really hard. They need a sense of nationalism and like do the right thing for their country, and it's a hard nation building is a hard thing as we've seen through history.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about that. I've got to know what the conversation is to get these guys to come back to a blown out police station. Like now, don't get me wrong. In the last couple of years, we've had those same discussions in the United States, which is crazy that I'm even saying that, but it's true. To get people to come back to these bombed out stations, being reinforced. Are you seeing in the big city, now we're going to kind of tie law enforcement in with it. Are you seeing that in the big city? Because I got to tell you, where I'm at in the city I'm in, and you and I both know where I'm at, they barricaded the whole downtown. They would, when the election happened, they boarded up the entire downtown. Now, that's a major metropolitan area. Something has gone wrong if you're boarding up the entire downtown. And you've got to see that being the Mecca.
Yeah. No, I worked that night too, and it was private companies hired private security, armed security, and they boarded it up as if it was a hurricane coming through, and then we roll out there, and you got to take law enforcement's out there, but at the end of the day, you have you're responsible for yourself, and a lot of people I guess understood that, and set up just in case.
I will never forget what it looked like. I remember, excuse me, I remember fires burning and glass broken out of building. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've seen. The question to you would be, after fighting for this country and doing everything, your Pearl Harbor, all that kind of stuff, you come back here and you see something like this happen after you get into the role of law enforcement. That's got to juggle in your brain a little bit.
Yeah. No, it does. So, but, it's hard, man, so, but I'm a professional, and, I'm going to toe the line and do my job, and everybody, they can rely on me, I can rely on them, and just got to keep going forward, as I'm in this role and this is my job, that's it.
Have you noticed a difference in being back over here in the States? Have you noticed a difference? We talked about the patriotism and stuff after 9/11. Has it gotten pretty much back to business as usual, or do you still see in that area like people trying to make a great New York City and stuff? Because there's a lot of good that's going. There's a lot of bad. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bad going on, but that's every major metropolitan. Is there a lot of good going on too? Because all we're going to see in the news is the bad, because that's what sells papers.
No, there's a lot, man. There's a little, and like my department, I have a lot of friends that went on to bigger, better things in the department and doing great work. And like, everybody's, what it is? It's the pendulum, like
Absolutely.
Bad, good. It goes back and forth. And, I've been on the department for almost 16 years now. So like, I saw what it was back then, and now I see what it is now. And it's a big difference. Like, I got to see, the Bloomberg era and all of that compared to now. So, but, once again, though, you're on the 5-yard line. You gotta play football,
So let's go back over, because I want to talk a little bit more about when you're deployed, because I want to talk about your Purple Heart. I want you to tell that story. I don't want to interrupt you a lot while you're doing it, because it's a crazy story, because I've heard you tell it before. And not only what happens when the actual initial blast goes off, but what happened afterwards is even crazier part to the story. So you go ahead, and then if I want, I'll kind of interject in with questions and stuff.
Yeah. So, it was early in deployment, which is insane. Like I've met a lot of people that have been hurt and, killed early. And like our first guy that got killed, our second deployment was like day 12. He got hit by a mortar doing gate guard on a 113 APC. So it's insane. You just never know like when things will go down. So it was April 9th, 2005, and there was a cemetery near this one of this big golden mosque, and it was off limits prior because all the killing that they did there. The battalion before us was kind of like, we're gonna kind of lay off like religious sites and cemeteries close to them and stuff, just to not bring the aggravation up to the max. So we get there, and then my CO is like, no, we got to go in there. He's like, they're definitely hiding, IEDs and weapons caches in there. So my city was so bad, like from, what do you call it? It was 8 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a curfew. It was like a shooter capture curfew. Like nobody was on the street. So what they would do is they would sneak through back alleyways and pull stuff out of the cemetery. So we go in there. Our mission is just to sweep the cemetery. So it was kind of like an L. And what do you call it? Our Bradleys go. We deploy. We jump out. And I'm actually point man going in there. We have 2 squads, first squad and second squad. And one guy's got the mine detector out and everything. And we're like this going through like shit. And there's all the graves are very shallow, so like mounds of dirt everywhere, and there's like debris and like pieces of shrapnel and stuff. The whole, like, we're walking in there like this thing's gonna blow the hell up. So we go in, we open up this red gate, and we start to slowly go through, and we're in wedges. So we're in our formation walking, and we're going through, and my platoon sergeant, who's the man, he's just walking through, picking stuff up, looking, and like completely tense, waiting to get ambushed, waiting guys come off the, start shooting at us from the rooftops. We go in there, and this is like before lunch, and we're going through. We don't find anything. Metal detectors are going, so 2 squads go in. We get to the end of it. I remember looking at my lieutenant, like my lieutenant's looking around, like we've cleared the whole cemetery. And I'm like, hey, time to mount up, sir. Time to mount up. And he's like, yeah, Klein, time to mount up. Yo, let's mount up. Get the fuck out of here. So we start to walk, and so it's like an L. So we're in the back here, and our squad has to go make a left to this red gate. And what do you call it? The other squad's gonna move and hop a fence and then go to their Bradleys on the street. So my Bradley's on the other side of this wall with a red gate, and we're walking. And so I'm point man. So I didn't have my sunglasses that day, so thank God I had my SXX whatever goggles on, like ballistic goggles on. So like going into the cemetery, I'm at the ready. I'm ready to rock and roll, everything like this, all tight. On the way out, I'm kind of like. And I remember as I'm walking, point man, and I look down at my feet. I see the red gate. I look down at my feet again, and the entire earth comes flying up. This giant cyclone of just dirt and smoke fly up. I go flying up in the air like 4 feet off the ground, just lifted. My rifle goes flying. I go flying in the air, land on my back. And all I thought was like, fuck, they blew me up. And I thought it was the initiation to an ambush. So like detonate, blow us up. And then they were just going to start spraying AK-47 rounds into the cemetery on top of us. So I rolled to my stomach, and I started high crawling and rolled over the top of a grave, had my shotgun. I'm like this in shock. So I look down, and pieces of debris are falling down. I look down, I look, and I have blood on my chest, and I have some pieces of skin. And this ear is ringing, and this ear is completely dead silent. And I'm like, those motherfuckers, they blew my ear off, man. My ear is fucking gone. So I'm like this with my one hand, and I'm like, I don't want to touch this. I thought it was gonna have like a gaping hole, and I touch it, and my ear is there. I'm like, oh, my fucking ear. So I quickly roll over, and I just see all this dust and smoke settling, and everybody hit the dirt, and I see my lieutenant like, Klein, you okay? And I'm like, I got blown the fuck up, sir. He's like, don't fucking move. So next thing I know, my squad leader comes running over, the man, Sergeant Zim, the man. He comes running over, grabs my thing, and starts dragging me. They throw me on my back. You hear my platoon sergeant screaming like, everybody smash the area up. So everybody starts spreading out, running all over the place, and they start smashing in the houses. So I'm laying on my back, and like my entire leadership, like my lieutenant, the 2 squad leaders, my platoon sergeant looking down at me like this, and I'm like covered in blood. And I just see a beautiful blue sky. And they're all like, he's bleeding, but it doesn't look too bad. I'm like, I'm laying on the back. So the medic's just wrapping me up like a mummy. So I was in shock. As soon as I knew I wasn't bad, I was like, I felt pretty badass. But now I'm all wrapped up and everything. Jumped up. my squad leader, he went to the hole. The hole was 6.5 feet wide by 3.5 feet deep.
Holy
monster,
shit.
monster fucking hole, man. It like, you know, literally like that day, JC who came down was like, oh, not your day, dude. And I'm amazed, you know, like reflecting back on it, you know, I should have at least got a puncture wound, lost a limb. I was right next to that thing, and I have like we went back there a million times afterwards, and like I took photos of the hole and everything. So I'm up, I fall into with the squad. I actually fell into the wrong squad, second squad. So they're smashing through houses, and there's like there's no men anywhere. There's like women in the houses and stuff. And the medic grabs me, brings me to a room. He's like, "Yo, start taking your clothes off." So I took all my vest, my stuff off from the waist up, and he starts patting me down, making sure I didn't have any puncture wounds I didn't know about, and then like having an adrenaline rush, and I was going as I'm bleeding out. So I'm like sitting there, this woman's like, "Oh my god," you know. So I'm fine. He's like, "Yo, get dressed, get back up." I have my face all bandaged up, my helmet kind of like up on top, and I turn the walk out. I turn the corner and I hear, "You motherfucker!" And like, "Yo, we got him, we got him." I turn around, and they got the guy. So I'm gonna Quentin Tarantino the story. We'll go back in time.
Okay.
When we show up, the Bradley shows up. The Ram comes down. We dismount. We go into there. The gunner in my Bradley is hanging out the top, you know, pulling Overwatch. A bunch of kids run up to the Bradley, so he starts throwing candy at them. So a dude comes over and he's like, starts yelling at the kids like, get away, screw the Americans, get away. So my buddy starts talking shit to him like, "Yo, I'm gonna fuck you up." So the Iraqi guy mean mugs him, gives him a dirty look, and walks off and goes into an abandoned building that's overwatching the cemetery. So he sees the guy, keeps an eye out. He disappeared into the building, paid him no mind. And then once the ID went off, he was like, "Shit, that guy." So when second squad came around, he pointed at the building. They ran up there. They tackled him. He was on the third story. He tried to make a run for the window. So he threw something out the window. They tackled him. They dragged him down, zip tied him. They sent the guy down, and they got the car garage door opener that set the bomb off. So this guy, you know, heard us come and was like, crap, ran there. He was too late. We were already in there. So he just got to a good place and waited for us to come back. And as we came back, you know, thank God, you know, he clicked it before I got directly on top of it. So they're like, "Klein, guard the guy who tried to kill you." So I go into Bradley with the guy who tried to kill me. Yo, out of world experience. Like there's a couple stories like this, and just like, you know, the guy who tried to blow me up, you know, blow me to Kingdom Come is standing right there. So real fast.
I got to stop you for just a second. Do you say anything?
Oh, of course. So I just look at this guy like, so my ex-wife was pregnant at the time. So I'm like, "You trying to stop me from seeing my baby, dude?" And he was like, baby. It was just, you know, it was off to the races, you know. So we had a conversation and that was it.
Okay.
But we brought him in and they interrogated him and stuff like that. Now the big thing was they brought the engineers in the next day. They had to evacuate 3 times. So you have this giant L-shaped cemetery, right? IEDs, weapons, and all stuff supposedly hidden here. As soon as you walk through the red gate, exactly to the right, everything was buried. So that IED was like right there as a booby trap. They pulled out mortars, RPGs, machine guns, AK-47. There was a gigantic cache there, and it was booby trapped as well. So the engineers kept like, as they're going through it, they kept like evacuating it to make it safe. And finally, they ended up clearing it, making it safe, and they put it inside like a mausoleum, and they did a controlled detonation and blew it up. But thank God, because if that IED would have triggered that stuff, it would have probably killed my entire squad. It would just blown half that cemetery to pieces. But it's pretty wild that, like, you know, we're looking over here when it was like right directly as soon as you walked in. So, but very blessed, very blessed.
So when it goes off, are you the only one hurt?
Yeah, I was the only one. Yeah,
Wow.
I just took a little bit of shrapnel to the side of the face and like neck, and that was it. You know, very superficial. You know, very fortunate. You know, and you know, I count my blessings. It was it was right there. So I'll send you some pictures of what it looked like.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So let me ask you. So how do you guys get on the intel of this place in the first place? Because I know that it was supposed to be off limits, and that's why they were storing it there, because you guys weren't supposed to be in there and you weren't supposed to be looking around. I don't know if it I don't know if that's the right term, off limits to you guys, but you guys kind of kept away on.
Yeah. So there was like a bunch of sites. They were just kind of like, we're not gonna play hardball over here, like because we were like grinding them into the ground, So that was just the scenario, and that was like it was like the last straw. So like we hit a bunch of cemeteries. A couple of the platoons hit other cemeteries at the same time, and went into some places, but that was it.
So the last thing that I want to talk about is you mentioned it briefly, but I want to talk about them. You had kill teams that were going out, I guess, at night.
Yep.
And that's where you really started kind of crushing the insurgency.
Yep.
Can you, I don't know how much you can tell about them, but can you kind of describe what they were and what you guys were doing in these?
So like when we first got there, we would just do kind of like presence patrols, and we just drive around and try to make contact. And then then we came up with a scenario where we would actually hide, like half the platoon would hide out, and we would just the other half it would be your time to be bait, and we would just kind of drive around and try to draw fire. And then when we draw fire, we return suppressive fire, and we'd call out where they are, and the other platoon would flank around and try to catch them and stuff. But like you're having these giant firefights and heavy urban, cities, it's a problem. So what we did was with the curfews, we started doing these little kill teams. We do 4 to like 6. Sometimes we do a squad, but sometimes we did 4. Like I was out on a 4-man one a lot of the time, and we'd sneak out at night, and try. The CO would give us a place he would want us to watch, and we'd stay there for anywhere from a day to 3 days or whatever, and we just hide out. And we always had a QRF at the patrol base ready to rock and roll, guys in Bradleys and stuff, a couple blocks away. And we just sit there and wait. And then there was days when nothing happened, and you just, and then there was days when guys would pull up, with shovels and dig holes for IEDs, or guys would sneak out with AK-47s and other types of weapons, and, we'd kill them. And that was pretty much it. And then it came to a point where, like, all the major streets, because you'd see these streets that were just cratered and, pock marks everywhere from just the constant IEDs getting placed everywhere, that they couldn't no longer put them on major roads. So they just stick IEDs in like side streets and stuff like that, because they were too afraid to come out, because they knew we were just hiding everywhere. So when we go to these people's houses, we were pretty much taking them hostage for the day. Like we couldn't let them leave, the families leave, because they would tell a neighbor. The neighbor would tell us, and the insurgents wouldn't know where we were. We would get ambushed, all different types of scenarios. But that was like the biggest strategy. It alienated the community, but it really got, to the heart of killing the insurgents.
Well, I hear a story of a kill team mission that you were on where you guys got lit up on a rooftop.
Yeah, it was a fucking nightmare.
They told you at the end of it, you can tell it if you'd like. I think it's a hilarious story in retrospect now, but how they tell you it's okay, but there's like 40 AK rounds behind you in the wall. But yeah. I would love you to tell that story, just a quick version of that.
I'm gonna need a drink. I'm gonna drink of water for this one.
Okay.
But, that was there's I guess the moral of the story is you just you got to be on never feel sorry for yourself, and always be on on top of your game. Like in law enforcement, your partner gets out of the car, get out of the car. Oh, this one's fine, but you always gotta have your head in the game, because the moment you let it down, your world can go to shit. And there was many scenarios and stuff where I was on point. I was waiting for it to come and stuff. This one, I was worrying about something else, and these guys, these dudes rolled up on us. So, okay, you always remember dates like this. It's a crazy fight. November 4th, 2005.
I've got it written in my notes.
It is fun. It was a fucking mess. So November 4th, 2005. So it's getting kind of like to the end of deployment now. So we left in the end of December. So we're kind of like, all right, we've had enough contact. We've done enough of this and that. Like we're just kind of, playing a little safe now. So we go out as a 4-man team. So I got my squad leader, my team leader, and my battle buddy, who's a saw gunner. So we go out. The CO tells us he wants us to watch this really bad traffic circle. So we're like, all right, no problem. So we go in there, and I actually have photos before this happens and photos after it happens. So we go in there, and we're trying to find like a good, and it's dark out, and it's early in the morning, maybe like 3 o'clock or something. We're trying to find like a nice tall building overwatch this traffic circle. We have our radios. We're good. You have QRF guys mounted up, hanging out back at the base. So we find the house. We knock on the door, and the family answers, and it's this nice husband and wife and like a ton of kids. So we're like, hey, you have to stay here, this and that. And they're like, okay. They're like, really don't understand what's going on, but they're cool. So what we do is we go up to the rooftop and we set up our little OP and stuff. And we didn't keep somebody downstairs, which is another big mistake. But we're like, whatever. We'll just go up to the roof. We set up the radio. We have one guy like watching the staircase down leading up on this. So the house is like 3 stories, got a flat roof. The second story has like a balcony with a staircase exposed to the outside going up to the roof. So that's all set up. So so we have the radio. One guy's watching the staircase. 2 guys are passed out. 1 guy's watching the radio. So we're taking an hour, hour shifts and stuff. So, it's going through uneventful. I take a couple pictures with a disposable camera. We're all smoking and joking. And it ends up being, I forget what time it was. It was probably like 11. So it's like getting to be like lunchtime. And I'm watching the radio. I'm watching Traffic Circle. And we're just kind of hanging out. And all of a sudden I just hear a shit ton of AK-47 gunfire on the street below us. So I'm like, oh shit. So I drop the radio, I grab my rifle, I spin around, and the walls are like these cement walls, and then there's like little openings with like metal grating, like very designy, like railings and stuff. So I walk up to the wall, and I pop my head over the wall, and my squad leader pops up. And I just see this white truck facing like southbound, and this little car with all these people hanging out with their hands up, and these 2 dudes with AK-47. So they just engaged. They just shot this car up, and they were yelling at these people, like, get out, get out, get out. So at this time, there was like these 2 tribes that were fighting a big war. And like our unit kind of supported the one because they were kind of like regular people. And the other ones were guys that were working with the insurgents and the car bombs, making car bombs and stuff. So like there was this whole like inner war thing going on in the city. So anyway, I see these 2 guys with AKs aiming at these people. I'm just staring. I have my rifle up. I'm staring at them like this is all happening at once. My squad leader just snaps around. All boom. These 2 dudes just spin around, look straight up at me. I just drop down, start engaging. Bum 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 bum. So these 2 guys start running. So these guys from their car, they're trying to run to the truck. I'm just engaging. I'm trying to kill these guys more than life itself. I'm just shooting, bang, 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 trying to miss, leading them, doing everything and like shoot the rabbit. These 2 guys run. They dive into the car. That's when I start hitting them. So I start shooting into the car. I shoot the side window, shooting the door. The car takes off. As it's driving, it goes. I'm still engaging it. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, disappears behind a car. I drop my magazine, 30 rounds. So from them running to them getting in the car, 30 rounds. Just like unloaded. Jump on the radio, reload my magazine, jump on the radio. I'm like, my sergeant's like, yo, what the hell? So while we're there, so I'm on the radio and I'm like, yo, hey, this is Blue 5 Romeo, Rock 6. We just engaged 2 insurgents, guys with AK-47s, possibly wounded. They're in a white truck. Back windshield shot out, side window shot out, and there's bullet holes in the car. It fled southbound, blah, blah, blah. So a second platoon is on the radio. Great dude, guy. It was a 10th Mountain Mogadishu guy. Platoon sergeant's like, what's going on there? I'm like, yo, we got engaged, this and that. He's like, all right. He's like, we're going to go look for that car. So that platoon branches off and starts looking for the car. So we hear screaming downstairs from the family. Like they're all startled and everything. So my squad leader is like, let me go down there and check it out. So my battle buddy goes down there with him. So it's me and my team leader stuck up there on the roof. So I go on the radio. So the CO is like, I'm expecting the CO to be like, yeah, it's time to get out of there. We're going to pick you up. He's like, yeah, stay there. Stay vigilant. Keep an eye out. We're like, all right, whatever. But everybody in town knows we're here now, So like and we're the tallest building in this part of the neighborhood. So I'm just waiting for like an RPG to come through. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, all right, whatever. So 2 guys go downstairs. I'm on the roof with my sergeant. He's actually on the balcony. All of a sudden, I hear AK fire. Rounds start flying over my head. I'm like, whoa, shit. So I'm like, yo, Sarge, is that coming at you? And he's like, no, it's at you. I'm like, where is it coming from? So I put my head up again. I'm looking, and I saw like a little mosque at the end of the street, like a little like community mosque, I guess. I don't know. So I'm like, I think the rounds are coming from there. So then all of a sudden they start shooting again. And I can't see where the muzzle is coming from. The round's cooking over my head. So I get on the radio. I'm like, second platoon, this is Blue 5 Romeo. We're taking fire from this. We think it's like a corner mosque. Can you come over here? And he's like, where's your location? So I'm trying to remember what I said. I told him the wrong location. So I was taking fire from the north east, but I thought my north was this way. So I tell him like northwest. So I'm like, northwest of us, yo, northwest of this location, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, no problem. I'll be there. So like, that's what, so that's what happened. So I'm sitting there. All of a sudden I hear the Bradleys roll up. I peek over the top and they're in the wrong direction. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, they're supposed to be over here. They're supposed to be over there. So I see the platoon sergeant hanging out the top of the Bradley with his binoculars. He's like, where the fuck are you? I'm like, I'm in this tall fucking building over here. And he's like, I don't see you. So I'm like, he's like, yo, jump up and wave at me. And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, are you ready? He's like, yeah, I'm ready. So I jump up, jump down. I'm like, did you see me? He's like, no, do it again. I'm like, okay. I jump up. They start shooting at me again. I drop down. I'm like, fuck. So I look at my sergeant. I'm like, Sarge, you got a star cluster? And he's like, I do. So he had a star cluster. He runs up next to me. We're like back to back. He puts the star cluster in his 40mm grenade launcher, his 203 under his M4. Fucking back to back. He's like, we're gonna shoot it. We're gonna shoot a star cluster. He's like, all right. We shoot it. Goes up in the air. I'm just beautiful blue sky. I look, and I'm like, oh, it's a dud. It goes. I see exactly where you guys are. Bradleys come. They come down the street. They're turns. They're traversing, looking for targets. The gunfire stops. So the Bradleys keep rolling. And he's like, all right, we don't see anything. You guys, stay here, stay cool. We're real close by. If shit happens again, call us back. We'll come over here. Like, all right, no problem. So my squad leader comes up on the roof with my other buddy, and he's like, everybody's cool downstairs. He's like, what the fuck is going on up here? I'm like, yo, we're taking fire over here. Second platoon just rolled through. This and that. He's like, get back on the radio and see if we're gonna get extracted out of here, because everybody knows we're here. We're just gonna be getting pelted nonstop. It's just a matter of time before an RPG hits the building. So we're sitting there, whatever. So I call him like, hey, Rock 6. I'm like, Blue 5 Romeo. This is Blue 5-1. I forget his call sign. I'm like, your request to get extracted. And he's like, nah, stay there. Remain vigilant. 100% security. We're in the area. You'll be all right. I'm like, motherfucker, man. I'm like, I don't, we were bait. Let's play it simple. We were bait. We were sitting there just getting pelted. So I started feeling sorry for myself. I was like, this is fucking bullshit. This is fucking what a crock of shit. Whatever. So I'm looking at the traffic circle. Thank God these guys made a shit ton of noise. You just hear a car, boom, slam, brake slam, and you hear all these doors opening up. So I'm like, what the fuck is this now? So I spin around. I walk back up to that same wall that I walked up before. Pop over my rifle. And what do I see? I see 5 guys with AK-47s running straight at us, just unloading at the waist. So I see it. Rounds start cooking. I roll over to my side like this. Rounds just spraying over the top. I'm like, oh, shit. Grab the radio. This all happened simultaneously. I just yelled, no call sign, nothing. I'm like, we're taking heavy fire. Fucking, my squad leader is the fucking man. Now, my squad leader, before he came to our unit, he did cold weather testing for the Army. So that was his duty station. He was up in Alaska, and he was field testing the XM8 and a couple of the rifles and stuff. So the moral of the story is this guy, all he did was shoot. He jumped up, shot the lead guy dead in the chest. Guy dropped. Once he did that, all 4 of them just started running off in different directions. I jump up. I'm shooting. So across the street, you have one guy running north. There's a white truck parked on the side. Guy runs behind that. 2 guys run south. The 2 guys running south, my buddy, the saw gunner, he jumps up. He's unloading. He's trying to get him. I don't think he hit them. I think they definitely got away, but he's unloading on them. I start shooting it out with the guy on the other side of the truck. The one guy's dead in the street. My team leader shoots the guy running north. He hits the ground. He's crawling away. He shoots him, kills him. And so I'm just going back and forth with this one guy. The guy drops down, just shooting rounds. I'm like, there's one point where I'm shooting over my head, and rounds are just cooking back and forth. And So I look, and the guy stops shooting. I'm looking, and like the rounds are coming in. Looking. All of a sudden, I'm like, I totally lose sight. I'm like, where is he? He's behind the truck. The guy darts from behind the truck, and there's like a blue gate right next, in a courtyard, right behind the truck. Opens the gate, slams the gate. My squad leader shoots the gate 3 times. Boom, 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 boom. Second platoon rolls up. The Bradleys come back. So you got 2 guys laying dead in the street, and you got the blue gate. So the ramp drops, and I'm like, yo, this fucking guy in there with the AK-47, right there, he's right there. And they get their rifles up, they stack on the door, they open the door, they walk right in, they walk right out, they drag him right out. My squad leader shot through the gate, hit him in the neck and the head, blew his brains out, just dragged him out dead. Friggin', that guy must have slammed the gate shut and just like been right behind it and took it right in the neck and the head. So next thing you know, so now we have 3 dead guys. So the Iraqi army shows up, the Iraqi police show up, my CO shows up, I think second platoon's there, all that. They start bagging the bodies up and everything. It's a big joke now. My CO comes on the roof and he's like, ah, you sound a little scared there. I'm like, look at the wall, sir. And there's like bullet holes all over the place. And he's like, you're gonna re-enlist? I'm like, I'll think about it. At that time, we got battalion belt buckles for doing cool stuff. So I was like, sir, can we get our belt buckles? He's like, yeah, you can get your belt buckles. So then my squad leader starts talking to him. And he's like, what do you want us to do now? And the CO's like, just stay there for a little longer. So we stayed there for like another 3 hours. They took the bodies and they left and stuff. And they're like, yo, we're close in the area. And we're going to keep looking for the other 2 guys that were shot initially. And but you guys stay here. So they end up finding the 2 guys that I shot. They were at they drove to the hospital and went in there. They actually medically emergency airlifted them out of there by Black Hawk and brought them to Camp Spiker. One guy I shot 3 times in the leg, and one guy I shot him 6 times in the shoulder and the back. So they actually did emergency surgery on the one guy before bringing him to Abu Ghraib. And there's actually more to the story than to that too. But so we sat up on the roof there for like 3 more hours. I'm just like, and then we went back. After that, that wrapped it up. But it was bad. Like I had an assault pack, and there was a Red Bull in it that exploded. So I was like looking through the bag to see if a bullet went through it, but somebody must have stepped on it as we running around like madmen up there, just snapping rounds all over the place. But yeah, man, if those dudes were quiet and they got into the building, we would have had shit show on the staircase coming up. So but and then to this day we don't know if we initially engaged the first guys, if they knew we were Americans or they thought we were the other tribe shooting at them. Like we rolled up on them and that. So they don't know. We don't know if they knew we were Americans or we thought they thought we were the other tribe. A bunch of gunmen from the other tribe. So fast forward, I think like a week later, I had to go to Camp Spiker for something, and 2 of my buddies were on prisoner guard. So the way they rotated it there was you always had to have somebody awake 24 hours with any of the wounded. And like the one part of the hospital was all insurgents, so they're all like, they're all shackled and handcuffed to the beds and stuff. So it sucked. I felt like usually the place is full, but there was like nobody in there. So it was just my 2 friends watching these 2 guys I shot. So I ended up going to Camp Spiker, and I felt horrible that these 2 guys were there by themselves. Constantly. One guy had to be up. They were pretty much sleeping next to the enemy guys. So I went there and I got to go see the 2 guys I shot up, and that was a weird experience. So they were like, I go in there, and the doctor, he's like, yo, that's the guy who shot these 2 guys. I'm like, hey, I'm like, it's just, what it is.
What is it with you and having to get close to people after they try and kill you? That's the.
I don't know. It was there. I was like, yeah. And the guy's looking at me all like confused and stuff. He's like, oh, that's the guy who shot you. And I was like, hey, what's up? What's going on? It's such a mess. But they ended up going to Abu Ghraib. That was before they closed it down.
Right.
So, but those dudes were coming. But that was it.
Okay, so you get out of the military, you come back. Now you've had all this action, especially on your second deployment. You come back and you decide, all right, I haven't had quite enough action. Now I want to join, because I know your friend talked you into doing it, right? Taking the test. saying, yeah, you need to do it right now, because you were going to put it off.
Yeah, I was, I was a big procrastinator in life. Yeah, actually, it was, I got back from Iraq the first time. It was 2003, and one of my friends, he was a New Yorker, great guy, and he was like, "Yo, I heard they're giving out the NYPD test for free at the Officers Club." I'm like, "Really?" The NYPD sent recruiters to Fort Stewart, and they've done it to like a lot of military bases, and they give out the test. So I think we went. So I was kind of like, I don't want to go. He's like, no, we need to go. We need to go. So I had nothing going on. I went with him. We went to the Officers Club. A bunch of NYPD recruiters were there, and they were like, we're going to give out your test. You get your 5 military points. We're going to mail you your scores. You get your CO to write a deferment letter, sign off on it, and send it to us, and we'll hold your scores until whenever you get out. So it was, and later on, like I literally got out of the Army, and I got back from my Iraq second tour January of 2006, got out of the Army in April. As I'm driving up I-95, I made a phone call, started my investigation 3 days later, and I was in the academy in 3 months.
Man, that's really crazy, because it never
really
goes that fast.
Oh, no, especially now. But yeah, no, it worked out. I had a wife with a kid. I needed a job, pronto, and NYPD gave me so much. Very, very fortunate that it all fell in line.
So I heard in another interview they were asking you about what was harder, basic in the military or the academy. Of course, they're two separate things. When you go though to the academy, we talked about this kind of in the beginning. You have a kind of different sense of purpose, different sense of urgency. Like you just talked about, your wife had a baby, you needed a job. It's not time to fuck around. It's time to like settle down.
No, absolutely.
Do what you got to do in the academy. And I noticed that generally when I went through the academy, there was people very dedicated to it. I think a couple of the younger ones weren't quite sure yet, but did you notice? Because I noticed I was just trying to do the best I possibly could when I was in the academy and kind of get off on the right foot.
No, absolutely. Like, I did all of that, and now I come to a new world, which I don't know anything. And you got to prove yourself. And like, I'm a professional, so I'm going there, and I'm not going to be a headache. And like, I need this job. I'm not like trying to find myself. I'm test it out, see if I like it. Like, I want this job, and I'm going to bring everything I have to bear, and to achieve it, and to graduate and move on. I had a wife. A lot of people I was in the academy with. They were all different ages, but predominantly of them were younger.
Right.
And I was already married a couple of years and with a kid, and I needed it, and I was going to do the best I could.
So do you notice a difference when you go there? And what I mean by that, to me, the police academy was more cerebral than like basic in the military. And what I mean by that is there was a lot more of, in the military, you have to learn your tactics. You have to learn, everything you have to do to perform your job. When you're in the police academy, though, you're learning stuff to literally keep you alive, one, but also keep you out of prison. I mean, it's a huge weight. Now, like you said, you and I were older when we went to the academy, but that's a huge weight as you're going through, because whether you realize it at the time or not, all that stuff will come back to you. Did you realize that while you were in the academy too? Like, man, this is a completely different way of learning, because you have to be able to recall it at a moment's notice.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say the academy was good. I learned a lot of foundational stuff, but like the first 6 months, year, right, actually on the street is like where you learn everything. And, also too, I'll be honest, I studied so much for a test, and that's how it kind of felt to me. I really need to apply things to understand them. And once I got to the street, it kind of started all over again and learned everything that way, because by actually doing it and applying it, like doing a mock scenario where it's like, oh, do arrest paperwork or do this and that. I'm like, yeah, okay,
where you make up your fake narrative and yeah,
but actually applying it, that was the big thing. But I'll tell you though, man, I don't know how it is now, but we had like a series of 4 tests, and if you fail one of the tests, you get a retake, and if you fail that, you're asked to resign.
That's
So
how
like
it was. Yeah.
that is stressing enough, like if that didn't work out for me, I would probably be back in the military or doing but so like a lot of stress, riding on it.
So how long was your academy?
6 months. So throughout the history of NYPD, it's always varied. Sometimes it's been 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
What different. Sometimes they do a like couple months train up, and then you go to precinct and learn in like your academy uniform, then come back. But mine was just 6 months.
Yeah, I mine was 8 months, and I think now it's 9 months to go through, just because of the stuff they've added after the last couple of years. They've added some stuff in that they had to learn. When you get done with the academy, you go to the 101st precinct in Queens. Now, you said you're from Long Island, so had you been around Queens? Had you anything like that? Were you familiar with the area, or did you do a wish list first?
Yeah, our wish list. I mean, everything's changed now, but the wish list it was like it was like 9 choices. So like, there's patrol, there's housing, and then there was transit. So housing's like the housing projects, and you have transit, which is subways and stuff like that, and then you have patrol. So I wanted to do patrol. I want like that was just my style. Actually, yeah, that was my style. But so I kind of like picked closest to where I lived at the time. So I picked Queens. So I did patrol, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. And then I did, transit, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. And then I did housing, Queens. And then I got patrol Queens. So it worked out very well for me. So.
Do you think you would have enjoyed doing transit or housing? Now, I've heard people say that transit is probably the closest thing to the NYPD. It's not the same thing. And that all changed under Bratton, I think, where he brought all 3 online with each other. 3. And then, but housing is you're just kind of keeping the law in the housing project. So do you think if you would have fallen into either one of those, transit or housing, that you would be as happy, or mobility, or tried to get somewhere else?
So like, the precinct I worked in had a lot of housing projects, and actually had a housing satellite, which was cops from my precinct that handled that. And like, I did midnights, so I handled housing jobs. So like, I got a nice taste of,
Absolutely.
working in housing and stuff like that. And patrol, I mean, I liked patrol because it's like what you see on TV, on cops, like, you get the 911 call and you go respond, you handle domestics and, emergencies and anything comes up. And then we had a lot of pickup jobs where you see a crime happening and you go intervene and take care of it. So, I think that was the best for me,
Yeah, I joined 2006, the same as you. So I've been on almost 16 years too. What have you noticed has changed in policing just since you've come in? Because I'm not joking. I only have 15, almost 16 years on, but it has changed unbelievably. Yeah, just in 15 years. So what have you noticed in yours? Now, I know that you've, just like us, have had trouble with mayors, city council, things like that, trying to defund or do other things. But what have you seen kind of on the cellular level in policing?
It's trying to think of politically put this.
And
it's more, I guess
advised,
it's more
if there's anything that you don't feel comfortable, just say I don't feel comfortable talking about that, because I understand exactly what.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very political with this. It's like, what do you call it? No, it just changes. So it's not as the policing, you could say that it's not as aggressive as it was, for better or worse. And everybody's evolved and adapted, and that's what we're in now. The pendulum swings one way and it goes back to the other way. So, but that's the main climate, I believe. But there's still a ton of people putting good work in there, and if you can't attack a problem or crime from this angle, everybody's figuring out the way to do it from another angle to, to benefit the, the community and make this place a safer city,
Yeah, what's always interesting to me about New York is when you have these precincts, and it's different from, like where I'm at. We have 7 divisions, then you have headquarters and, all the other, but they cover a huge area. Each division covers a huge area of the city. So you have like Southwest, Southeast, all that kind of stuff. With you guys have so much crime that a precinct handles what, like 2-3 square miles, 4 square miles is about it, right?
Yeah, it depends. Like some precincts are very small, and some precincts are very large. And like there's one of our precincts like immense, and like they're in the process of trying to divide it up and make a new precinct that will cover another part of it. But I believe it's all based on like, obviously, the way the city is mapped out, but also to like where the crime is, so like more intense crime, it's usually a smaller precinct, like a mile or so. Like my precinct was pretty, had a lot of crime, and it was pretty small. It's like, I think it was like 2 miles by like a half a mile, like a little slit. But yeah, it depends though. But yeah, there's a lot of the NYPD is immense, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. How many are you guys up to now?
They always say 33, but I would probably say about 29, 30. But it's still a lot,
Yeah, see, with mine, we're floating right around 3,000.
Yeah.
So
it's all, that's why I feel like a lot, like the stuff that happened last year. I really feel for like the departments that don't have the manpower to deal with that. It's just it sucks. But you gotta do what you gotta do. With what you have.
Yeah, and and you bring up a good point that and by no means is my department small at all. But
no, it isn't. No.
Yeah, but the thing that you bring up, it's harder. It seems crazy because it's harder now to get good candidates, to get people that want to do the job for the right reasons, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of get into a loop that is very hard to get out of because you need to fill those roles because you have crime that's raising up. You have a lot of stuff going on in the judicial system. So you don't have those patrol officers. Then you get strapped for detectives, and then you can't recruit good people because the pay is not good. Do you see any kind of way out of this? I think that the answer is cities are going to finally have to just pay up to what is being done. They're going to have to match salaries. They're going to have to match benefits and things like that, or you're going to end up with the police department that you deserve. And that's a crazy way to say it, but that's how it's going to end up being.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's, it's the whole pendulum thing, when there's no need, when everything's too good, it swings one way, and then when it's bad, it swings back the other way. It's just, but, life finds a way, right?
Yeah. Well, during my career, we had a span of 3 years where we couldn't take overtime. You had to take comp time because the city was building a new hotel, and they were taking that money and building a bridge and stuff. So instead of raising the salaries and stuff, we took a hold, and we couldn't, like I said, take overtime. We couldn't do anything. So it was crazy.
What year is that from? Like estimate of beyond.
I think it was like 2000. I want to say like 2008 to 10 or 11. It was a real crazy time. I mean,
yeah, I can believe it,
man. I've been blessed. I had a wife that made good money and stuff, but I had buddies that were hurt, man, that, were paying a ton into their insurance and stuff, and they were hurt until the salary started coming up. We had a lot of people leave the department for other ones just so they could get on a good salary base. Now that's all changed. We have a really good mayor in now that really backs the police department and stuff. So I know you guys are going through some crazy stuff with the mayor and stuff, but the salaries have finally started raising up. Now, I want to talk about being at the NYPD. You are part of a 3-man unit, and it's a very elite unit, the forensic sketch artists. There's only like 100 of these guys all over the United States.
Yeah, it's it might be even smaller now. So I mean, my I'll give you like the little backstory about how even this came about. Was my dad was really an awesome artist. He was professional. He did commercials. He worked on cartoons with Disney and Warner Brothers, and did tons of design work and merchandise and cartoon all the way. And it was always feast and famine. You know, it was so I was never. I loved to draw, and I always did it as a hobby, and saw that he did it and learned it from him, but never thought it would ever be a viable like source of income, career, or anything like that. But I drew as a hobby, and so I drew in high school, I drew in the military, I drew in the police department, and then one time, a friend had a friend that said, "Oh, he's like he says you know how to draw really well." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "No, I heard you're really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." He's like, "My friend's actually like the head detective sketch artist over at One Police Plaza." He's like, I'll get you to talk to him." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I called him up, and the guy was very nice. This first grade detective, Juan Perez, and he'd been there forever. And he was like, "Yeah, come on down," you know. So I went down and showed him a portfolio, and he was like, "You got to yeah, you have really good stuff. You just got to take a drawing test." So I took the drawing test, and I did very well. And he's like, "Wow, man, you got some talent." And he's like, "You know, we really like." He talked to the captain, and he was like, "You know, like we really like you, man. You're like one of the top candidates. You know, don't unfortunately, this is 2011. You have to wait for me to retire, kid." So I'm like, "Okay." So I went back to patrol, and I just waited, and he ended up retiring in the end of 2014, and they picked me up in January of 15, and that was it. I was off to the races, and you know, been doing the best I can ever, you know, since I've got there, and very blessed. It's a great unit, and not many of them in the country, that's for sure.
Did you ever think, like, I would have never even thought of that job while I was going through? Like, if your friend wouldn't have brought it to you, would you even realize that it was around?
I didn't even know about it. That's the one beautiful thing about the NYPD. There's so many different units. You know, it's so big, and very fortunate. So, but also too, like the NYPD is a very big department. There's a ton of talented people. You know, so there's a lot. Like for artists, there's a lot of amazing artists in there. So, like we recently picked up another artist, so we had to give all the tests out and interviews again, and you see how awesome and talented people are, and then you have to make the decision, like, you know, this is the guy that's going to get it. You know, you give the thumbs up, and it goes through the chain of command and everything. But very competitive. So, but it's great. You know, a talent that I had in my back pocket, I never thought I would ever use. I get to use now to help people, and you know, help detectives on the ground. You know, figure out who the guy is, and you know, sometimes it's the nail in the coffin. Sometimes it's a hint or a clue that leads them in the right direction. But it's a very satisfying job being able to use my talent to help people.
Now, in this picture right here of you looking very serious, I understand you got to take all police pictures where you look serious. The sketches behind you, are those all your sketches?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you keep every single sketch you do, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all filed and everything like that. And then, like, you know, I have a board, so I put a nice smattering of pictures in there. You know, when people come to visit, and also too, like when witnesses come in and they see, you know, they can see some of the work you do and kind of get a grasp of what they're going to go through when you do the interview.
So it's different for you with the way you have to interview people. It's very different in the job that I do because I handle a lot of our interviews in my unit. But it's a different kind of interviewing. Can you kind of go through the steps of how you come up with these drawings? Because a lot of people they don't think that sketch artists are even around. They think it's all computer generated now and stuff. So can you kind of walk through the steps of what you do?
Yeah. So we do a lot of different things. We do cold cases, DOA, dead people, reconstructions, we do all this different stuff. But the bread and butter is the composite sketches, what we do. So the detectives will arrange for a victim to come in, and these can be anything from, you know, robbery to rape. You know, we have homicides, everything. We sit down and we will make a rapport with the witness. That's like the most important thing. Like, you know, some of these crimes are like I've talked to, you know, juveniles, sexually assaulted, raped kids and stuff. It's like if you don't come across and like able to get that bond with them, they're going to shut you out, and they're not going to tell you really important details that are going to make your sketch go one way or the other and make it closely resemble the guy you want to catch. So I interview them. I get a generalization of what the guy looks like. once we have the rapport. And we have photos, mug shots from the 70s and 80s. They're so old. And with different race and age groups. And then they go through that and they pick out elements, and we talk about, like, oh, these eyes on this guy remind me of the bad guy because this reason, and the nose looks like this, and we get a grasp of the different features. We use Google Images, like, so if the guy has a hat, we find out exactly what type of hat he has, what type of haircut. We take all these elements, they hang out, we draw in private, and I draw what I think of what the guy looks like based on the photograph pieces that she's picked out or him picked out, and with the interview, what I think he looks like, that image I have in my head. And then I reveal it to them, and I tell them, like, don't tell me right away how much you hate it. Just look at it and tell me what you think. So what they do is they look, and sometimes they're like, that looks exactly like him. Don't change a thing. That's the guy. Sometimes you're like, oh, it looks good. It looks just like him. Change his nose, but his nose, it's got to be thinner, or this and that. And then we just make changes, and we just, go back and forth until we get as close as they can get. And it's all based on the memories. So, like, the better the drawing is, it's not me. I'm just driving. Like, they're telling me the direction. Like, the better that they have, the better the better the drawing comes out, the closer it looks. And sometimes people don't get a great look at a guy, like, dimly lit and dark and stuff. But you just do the best you can. So, but some of the results are pretty amazing, and they've helped a lot of people and closed a lot of cases. So, very fortunate.
So let me ask you, an average sketch, how long does that take you?
It depends. It could take anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours and longer. So,
and is it all?
It depends.
It's all pencil, pen. What do you use? Charcoal.
We start with pencil, and we do the whole sketch in pencil, and we get it to a thumbs up point, and then we scan it, we put it into the computer, and give it like that 3D look, and give it like a little bit of detail and stuff to help with it.
So I'm just going through and kind of putting up some pictures that you've done. This one is super close.
Yeah, that was wild. So that was an elderly woman. She had her throat almost sliced open. He did slice her neck. She ended up surviving. But that was actually a guy who was selling textbooks, like, walking across the street, and he saw him and he knew exactly what he looked like. He said he was like, yeah, he looks like this, XYZ. He has the haircut of one of the running backs from the Baltimore Ravens. He has this, and that. I'm like, all right. Drew it up, and then they had this guy. It was all over the news. It was a big deal. But yeah, it was very, very good that helped out. I'm glad the woman was okay, and everything happened.
Has any of the cases ever personally affected you? Like, when you're trying to draw it, has it bothered you or driven you a little harder to get that, that perfection in the picture?
I mean, I treat all the cases the same, but, like, I've definitely had some, like, the children one's always always the bother. Like, I had one who was 11-year-old girl raped, and at that time my daughter was 11 years old, so like, it definitely resonates a little bit more. But
do you find that since you can draw the way you do and with Battle Tribe, does that get you a little more rapport with certain people? I mean, do you ever let that show that you can either talk to them, because that's building rapport, talking to them about something that might interest them? Do you find that helps you out a lot?
Oh, absolutely. You have to be a likable person for somebody to open up to you about, especially some of these people are just, horrible crimes and stuff. Like, everybody I draw are just horrible people. It's just like,
right.
And, but that's a part of the, that's one of the vetting process when you come to the forensic artist unit, is they want to make sure that you can be able to talk to people, like, would you let this person talk to your kids and interview them about something serious, So, but yeah, it's definitely a plus, and it gives you the best results you can get, and, like, and also too, like, so I've been doing it for like 6 years now, and now, like, I'm in my prime. Like, I know what questions to ask, I know what to look for. In the beginning, like the first year or two, you're trying to find your way and trying to find that rhythm that works best for you to get the best results. And so, like, now I'm like right there, and it's a good feeling to be at your prime in what you're doing to help people.
How long do you see yourself doing it for?
I'm gonna keep doing it until
Well, what I
uh
mean by that is,
I
do you
fade
think this?
retire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
until I retire. Until I
yeah,
retire.
that's what I meant was, do you
Yeah,
think
yeah,
this will be until retirement that you'll do
yeah, absolutely,
this?
absolutely.
Because what you find is people get into detective positions and they love it for the first couple years or 5 years, but then they find that maybe they want to do another kind of detective work, or they want to move to something else, or they want to try something else out. And you get people that move around.
Yeah,
They might start in, like, I have a buddy right now that was sex assaults, and now he is a homicide
yeah,
detective because he always wanted to get to homicide, but he knew he had to pay his dues up through assaults and everything like
yeah,
that. But he moved around as fast as he could to get over to homicide. So that's what you don't see it all the time, because you see some people get into detective positions and they'll stay there for 10-15 years doing it. So that was kind of what the question was slanted towards. Is this something that you
yeah,
would like to do until retirement, or
yeah, absolutely. Every case is so different, and every case has got such a good, like story and stuff. Not a good story, but like it, it's having the talent to be able to help people like that, and also too, like, it's the face of the case. Like, I've had a couple cases. Like, you get the, like, we're kind of like firemen, always waiting for like the next big one. And you know we live, obviously caseloads have come down from technology, and there's cameras everywhere, but not cameras don't work all the time and stuff. And like, sometimes
absolutely.
there's a big case that hits, and they want answers, and they need something for the news, and they need to get it out there for the people so they can solve it, in the first 48 hours. And so what? So your image, what you do, the choices I make are out there front and center on every TV, television, internet, in printed media, everywhere. And it's a big deal. And I take great pride in my work, and it hasn't gotten old for me at all.
Yeah, and you're right. Cameras don't work all the time. I can remember a homicide where they had just installed these new surveillance cameras at an apartment complex, and the
Meh.
the cameras literally went down like 7 minutes before the homicide, and the camera was pointed like right where the homicide happened, and it went offline and then came back on like 45 minutes later.
It's crazy.
Like
I
they
had a
were.
case. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I had a case. It was like a horrible, what do you call it, robbery. The woman got mugged and everything, and it was in front of a security camera store. So in the front window, there was all these security cameras, all paid, like ones you could buy and everything, like
Right.
tons of them, and none of them worked. Nothing was on,
Oh my
nothing. So
god.
it was just like a complete blank spot. But
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, that one, I think the cameras came on like 30, 45 minutes later. And it was because the company that had put them in was like remotely working and trying to get everything online so that you could see it remotely. I mean, it was insane. And what made it even more insane was the camera was pointed like they would have known exactly who did it right when it happened. So
oh, yeah,
yeah, unbelievable. So let's talk about what we kind of met up for. I got to tell you, man, your art is my favorite art out there right now.
oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I love it. Everything about it, because being kind of a nerd, being in law enforcement, being military. I mean, you can see behind me. I don't have the
Yeah.
normal stuff that people have back there. I I love your stuff. So you got to tell me how you came to the idea to do this, because no one was doing it before you.
No,
Mixing
it's crazy. It's
mixing
crazy.
those worlds together. No one did it.
Yeah, no. So I started, like, I just started drawing, and I had a lot of friends that were like, oh, you should put your art on Instagram, because Instagram's like, it's great because you could see, like, it's like almost like an instant portfolio. Like, you could see what somebody's completely about and just go on to it. So I started drawing, and I just started putting my stuff out there. And then I had this crazy idea one day. I was just like, let me, I always like, you take like kind of like a goofy, like sci-fi kind of idea, and then, but if you make it like serious, people believe it and like go for the ride. Like, I'll get like an example, like RoboCop, like Starship Troopers, like zany ideas, but they're so visceral and like grounded, and there's like, gory and blood, and like, oh man, there's like, the stakes are high. You believe it, even though it's like a goofy scenario. So I did this one drawing, one of the first ones. I did a bunch of military guys with stormtrooper helmets, which is kind of ridiculous, but I did it very gritty and everything like that. So I actually, a friend reached out to me. He's like, "Oh, this is awesome." we ended up becoming friends down the road. He was like, "Hey, I love your work. I saw this one drawing. You mind if I put it on Reddit?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." So he put it on Reddit and it had like 64,000 likes in like a day. And he's like, "Yo, I think you have something here." I'm like, "You might want to put that on a T-shirt." I'm like, "All right." And then it was off to the races. I just started, just drawing all different types of stuff and doing a lot of different mashups and crazy ideas. And then I came up with the brand Battle Tribe as an outlet for me, to put my art out there, and people are really enjoying it, and it's great, and it's pretty much I've made it into like a lifestyle, and like like I go down like, oh, I have an idea today, an idea tomorrow, and I just put it out there, and it's really great to see people enjoy it and see it everywhere, like the stickers, the patches, the clothing, and that people take great pride and enjoy it, and share it with me, and I get to share it with other people, and I've met a lot of different other people, but it's just been a blast, and it just keeps going and going.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, like you said, Instagram, Reddit. You've worked with Silence and Light, the
Awesome.
incredible Brad Thomas.
The man, the guy's awesome. Yeah, I would have never met him. It wasn't for my art and stuff.
Yeah, you worked with Wetsuit, Goons Up, Red Coat Apparel. You've even met Christian Craighead because you did the Obi-Wan Nairobi stuff.
Yeah, and that's another awesome story too. Awesome guy, and it's funny too because I met him, and there was people like, "Yeah, you didn't meet him." And I'm like, it was before he was out. And I'm like, "Yeah, I did. He drinks Stella, a lot of Stella." It's so funny.
That's the best beer in the world. So
yeah, it's delicious. So it's funny, but like the short story how I met him, awesome guy. Was I saw the terrorist attack happen, on the news and stuff, and I was like, whoa, and the image of him kicking the door in wearing that purple shirt, which is gray, 100% it's gray, was pretty wild. I was like, wow, I got to draw this guy. So I did a drawing of him and everything, and a friend of his reached out to me and was like, I actually, that's an awesome drawing. I'm friends with him. And I was like, get out of here. And I'm like, I'm an NYPD detective. I would love to send him a care package. So I sent it downrange to the person. And if they were lying, it is what it is, but for some reason, I'm like, nah, I think they're on the level. And like 2 months later, they're like, oh, did he ever thank you? And I'm like, it's not about that. I just wanted to, like, no, I'll get it. He's got to thank you. So then he reached out to me. He's like, I'm coming stateside. I'd love to go hang out with you, have a couple beers. We'll shoot the shit. I was like, and we went out, we hung out, and we've had an awesome relationship ever since. And he's a great dude. Talk to him all the time, and he's got a lot of amazing stuff on the horizon. Just a really good dude. Just complete badass. Real badass dude.
Yeah. I will definitely agree with you there. That story is incredible. What he did, and how he handled himself. With the Battle Tribe stuff, you have so much of kind of pop culture meets law enforcement meets military. What are your and there's been a huge resurgence of that in the world. I mean, look at the Marvel movies, look at Disney Plus, look at all the superhero stuff, the Star Wars stuff that's really happened, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian. I mean, this was perfect for the pickings for you. Is there anything else that you want to branch out into sci-fi wise? Now, I know you've done some alien stuff recently, but have you ever thought about going into like the Star Trek and stuff like that?
Yeah, like you know what it is like I just gotta feel it. That's it. There's some people tell me like, oh, you should do this and that, and I'm just not really feeling it. But if it works, I'm down. Like it's so weird. Like if I'm not like I have two modes. I have like creating mode and a consumption mode. So if I don't really know what I want to draw next or have the idea, I just consume content. Consume, watch this, YouTube, go on Instagram and everything. And then all of a sudden I get that spark, and then boom, I'm into my next piece, my next drawing, my next idea. And it's fun. That's the one thing that's great about this. Like some people, build a brand or do art and stuff and it becomes work for them. I've just been, flying at the seat of my pants, just having a good time. Like everything I've done has just been just enjoyment for me. And then I put it out there. And some stuff, does awesome, and some stuff people are kind of like, that's all right. But it doesn't matter to me because, I'm having a blast. I'm checking, like I did like the action figures, right?
Okay.
So I remember I was walking around Comic-Con and I saw this one toy booth, and they do art toys, and they're all like bootleg, all art, hand numbered 1 through 20, like very crazy stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I was like, oh, I could do that. My characters kind of look like GI Joes. So I kit bashed. I did a bunch of painting. I had a friend. We did the packaging and everything. I go on Etsy. I found like bubbles. I packaged them up. They look completely real. So like one day I was doing a live stream and I showed them. It was something cool I did for myself, and people were like, "You gotta make those." So I started making them, and people just eat them up, and it's the coolest thing ever. And they're not meant to be open, by the way. They're supposed to be like an art thing kind of display. But some people open them up. But that's just some random thing I wanted to do, and and just made it happen, and people enjoyed it. And I recently just did a beer with Backward Flag Brewery out of Jersey, and like that was something I wanted to do. I'm at the beer distributor, and I look, and I'm like, wow, there's so much cool artwork on all these IPAs and stuff. I'm like, let me see if I can find somebody to collab with, and I found an awesome company, and reached out to them, and like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then we put some of the money to go to charity to Hunter 7. So that's another thing too. A lot of the different things. Like I have a bunch of charities I like to work towards. So I try to do things to help them out and get it out there.
I will tell you that beer is extremely hard to get.
Oh, I know. I felt so bad. I'm like, yeah, it's only. I
thought
2 hours.
I thought, you son of a bitch, Matt. You put this on here about this beer, and then I went to Backwards Brewing. I read through all their stuff. I tried to see if I could get it, if it shipped or anything. They are super tight on that stuff.
No, I'm so sorry. It's yeah. That was. So, but there'll be other beers and other breweries and stuff. So there's a couple projects in the works right now. So, yeah.
So how do you find time? Kind of wrapping this up. How do you find time for all this? You got kids, you got a full-time job, you got a wife, you got a company to run. How do you do it?
What do you call it? Yeah, I go to work. And then I come home and I'm right off to the races, and the weekends I relax and stuff. But during the week, I get home, I stay up late. My wife's awesome. She does customer service and stuff. And then there's a couple other companies that work with me to make all the merchandise based on the art and everything. And so it's like a full operation. So, but she does a lot of the management stuff. So all I have to really do, I'm just like creative, just making stuff. But, it's a lot, like you talk to anybody that does content. It's a lot. You gotta keep making it. But once again though, it's enjoyable, because all I have to really worry about is being creative and coming up with the stuff. So that's it.
Yeah. I absolutely love the stuff. Now we'll talk about where they can find you. If you try and find Battle Tribe, it pops up as Etsy. That's where they have to go to actually, there's not a Battle Tribe website. So the website the website that you're going to be looking for is etsy.com/shop/Battle Tribe. And that will get you to your store. You can go to etsy.com, put in Battle Tribe if you want to do it that way. So what's next?
You can Google Battle Tribe too. It'll come up.
Right.
So,
or you can put in Matt Klein Battle Tribe. You can put, I think, Render Artworks in the Google searches.
Yeah, Render Art. Yep.
So what's next for you, man?
I'm just what do you call it? I'm working on a couple collaborations right now.
Okay.
So nothing's to fruition yet, but what do you call it? I actually have there's so many. I have a really big one coming up. I can't wait once I get the thumbs up to give an announcement. I'm really excited about it. It's like a really, really cool one. It's gonna do a lot, and big charity thing through it, and really excited about that. It's gonna SHOT Show. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's gonna go through. But that's like when the announcement's gonna be. So like January next year. Okay. So I'm definitely gonna go there for a couple days down in Vegas. And so if anybody's listening and stuff's gonna be there, you see me bebopping around, definitely say hi. But I'm just waiting to see what happens. I don't I have a huge list of things I can't say yet, but things are coming. Just keep an eye on the page, and
Now, to give people hope that are doing things, how long have you been at this?
I started like the summer of 2018. And it kicked into high gear like October, and it's been nonstop runaway ever since. Just big, growing, and it's good. It's been a fun ride, and it's still going. So,
well,
like 3 years, 3 years, yeah, 3
years. Yeah. I think a lot of people start that stuff and they leave it too soon. They don't give it a full trial before they think, well, I didn't make $1 million right away, or I don't have 1 million followers right away.
Yeah.
And they kind of walk away from it, but it takes time to build that name. Now with you, it was one picture and 64,000 likes the next morning. So, I mean, it's amazing. And your art shows it, man. I mean, anybody, I love your art prints that you can hang on the wall and everything. So everywhere we can find you, Instagram is Matt Render. Website is once again etsy.com/shop/Battle Tribe. They can Google Battle Tribe. They can Google Matt Klein Battle Tribe. They can Google Render Art. You can go there, find everything. There are patches, there's stickers, there's flags, there's art, there's shirts, there's hoodies. Anything that you want Battle Tribe on, you can go find it there. Is there anything else that you want to promote tonight, Matt?
No, that's pretty much it. There's like I put a lot out there, because I meet so many great people and great organizations and other talented artists out there and stuff. And like Brad Thomas, who's a good friend, his band Silence of Light. We did a collab last year, raised a lot of charity. There's some good, working on some cool stuff with them now. And Warriors Heart Foundation is one of a great charity that I like. They do I'm trying to think of the name of it. What is it called? It's a getaway for military and first responders suffering from PTSD. It's like a retreat. So they're really good. And then you have Hunter 7, which is about veterans returning back that suffer from different ailments, from being exposed to burn pits and different toxins and stuff from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And there's a lot of different stuff. But yeah, just keep checking out my page and seeing what's up next. And but definitely spread the support. I always love sharing other people's great stuff. There's a lot of great, talented people in the veteran community that I've run across, and it's just it's a good community. It really is, the whole law enforcement and military community.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's you're doing phenomenal. I said, it's my favorite art out there right now. So once again, guys, Instagram, Matt Render. You can go to the website, etsy.com/shop/Battle Tribe. You can Google his name. You can Google Battle Tribe, and it will bring you to it. If you want more of me, you can find me on Instagram at the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD podcast. And you can find me on YouTube, where all of these conversations are in video versions. You get to see some of the pictures that we're talking about. And that's at the DTD podcast. Remember, guys, you come here every week because the best stories are true, and we give them to you. That's going to be the show for tonight, guys. That's Matt. I'm DJ. That's the show. We'll catch you on the next one. See you later, guys.